everyone. I'm so excited to have Nina Kong-Surtees here. She is my personal mentor for a program called The Mintery. She is an amazing art advisor, and I would love for you, Nina, to tell us more about your background and your connection to the arts.
Well, first of all, thank you so much, Mary, for having me here. It's such an honor and pleasure to be sharing a little bit about myself and my work. So just to give you a background of how I started is that I come from a family of artists, and my mom was never not a fan of being an artist. So she was always like, no, like don't go that route, go somewhere else, right? Like more stable, sustainable, like any Asian mom will tell you. I'm sure a lot of people have similar stories. So to meet the best of both worlds, I decided, you know what, like art history is like could be the thing. So I decided to pursue art history, even though I was on a medical track as an undergrad. I studied medicine because of my mom, because to grant my mother's wishes. But
Right.
in the end, it didn't work out for me. So I decided, I'm just gonna stick with the art history and get master's degree and then go from there. So I was going in the traditional route of working at galleries, museums, and then my career really kicked off while I started working at the Artists Endowed Foundations, where I started really focusing on catalog raisonné production. And then I noticed, there's a lot of issues around catalog raisonné. It's basically a compilation of all the works that artist has ever created during his or her lifetime. So it involves really in-depth research, and one of the biggest challenges, authentication and provenance. So, and that inspired me to get into blockchain space in late 2018. I was really excited about this technology because this could really solve a lot of problems that we're dealing with in the catalog raisonné, ensuring that we could sustain artists' legacy and build one and just let it run for however long, and be able to create generational wealth for artists' children, and be able to provide more funding for future programmings, and start fostering the next generation of artists. So this was the greatest thing, and that's where I literally got me to where I am. Is that since 2018 I've been exploring the space a little deeper, and my mission is right now is to close the gap between the traditional art world and the Web3. So that's my background in a nutshell. I think I cover everything because that's in the shortest form I could ever say about myself.
Yeah, that's so brilliant. Like I knew about your background, but I didn't realize that you got into blockchain technology in 2018. And it completely makes so much sense of really kind of putting those together. So I love your mission and what you're building. So thank you, Nina. For me, like meeting you, you've helped me develop the Hungry Artists concept and the whole NFT project through the Mintery program. And so when we started talking and you really liked the idea of kind of changing that narrative from starving artists to hungry artists and the NFT project I was building. So a hungry artist to us, is a talented creative that is full of drive and hunger. So you represent and advise a lot of these hungry artists. As a hungry artist advisor, what has that journey been like? And do you want to tell us a little bit, maybe a story of maybe you as an artist or you representing artists, and kind of from kind of a beginning story to kind of where they are now, of starting to success or something? Share a little bit about that.
Yeah, I love that question. I think that says a lot about I could definitely relate to the hungry artist because I've been there. Because as I starting my journey, right? I come from a family of artists. I always watched, my family creating all these beautiful things, and I've been always curious about, the process, what it means, the meaning behind the work, the intentionality, what the artist puts in. I was really curious. I even gone to art school early on, but my mom wanted me to learn the piano. That was her first, priority. But then I went to an art school one time. I think it was 5 years old, and it's an art school. It has music, it has visual arts and drawing. So as they were trying to enroll me, I just did my own thing. Well, my parents were talking to the director. I started drawing stuff, like just random things. I was just drawing. And then the director noticed something. She did suggest like, oh, I think she should be enrolled in the art class. And like my mom's like, no, like she's here for a piano. She was really adamant, like, no, she's here for a piano lesson. So I didn't really fully pursue like a visual art. And I think even in school, I found myself like doing a lot of artwork, and sometimes like I find out like I won like a prize in a contest. Like I didn't even enter these contests, right? I think my teachers were like secretly submitting these drawings on my without me knowing, and then I realized like they give me this prize. I'm like, where does this come from? Like I usually won like maybe second or third. Like I don't think I ever won the first prize, but like I was always ending up winning something. And like I think the teachers knew I had some kind of talent for like drawing, but my mom was just not having it. So she would kind of like, you know, for like sort of like guide me in the other direction, more like what she thought it was more stable. I mean, to be fair, I think parents in our generation want success is different. We will get into the success a little bit later on, but I think it's their definition is different from ours. So, I mean, I came to understanding over time, but at the time I was like, why is she doing this? So, in that sense, I think I always had my heart in the arts, even though I was pursuing medicine at school. Like I was secretly double majoring art history, and it was like it was some way to get away from all these like stress and all these things that I had to study for. But art history never felt like work for me. It was just like I just like enjoyed it. It was like an entertainment for me, right? Like learning about the history, going back in time. And I knew somehow I was gonna regret it if I didn't pursue art history. For some reason, like deep in my mind, even though I actually also worked prior to undergrad, I interned at the Metropolitan Museum of Art as a high school senior. It was a very competitive internship, and I got it like 2 summers in a row. And I ended up in an education. That was like one of the best time. I think that really kicked off my career was like focusing in education. And then like how do we, relay all these messaging and history, to even within my generation and the next generation. So that always been ingrained since the beginning of my career, and that I knew that was my mission. So I couldn't articulate it at the time. I just knew I was not. So I abandoned it. Like my mom was disappointed, and I was like, well, she's gonna get over it at one point. So she did, like after 10 plus years later. But I had to do it. So so my mission has always been like, my quest has always been like, studying the life of artists, what made them successful, what made them legendary as we are. Because as an art historian, that's what I study. It's just like, we hear all these stories that it's not an overnight success, right? It takes years, and I was curious, like, what made them so legendary? What made them into the history? So, and I apply the same principle for contemporary artists too, right? And right now, like fast forward, like, we have all these like big names, like, I could think of Jeff Koons, right? Like, I'm like, why is he so successful? Like everyone have a love and hate, relationship toward Jeff Koons. And like, why is that? So, I studied him in a way. Like I even attended one of his lectures, and I was blown away. I was skeptical. I was like, oh, this guy's just a marketer. He's just building hypes and whatnot. But like when you hear him talk, it changes a lot of things. I'm like, whoa, this guy is not just like selling it. Like he knows how to sell. He's a master of salesperson. But the way he speaks is like, wow, like he really knows about our history. It's not just like, BSing through. He knows, and he knows how to network, how to connect with people more in genuine terms. That's like appealing to the collector. So that's what makes him really successful, is like, he has that mindset of an entrepreneur, like, try to solve the problem, right? Like a lot of these artists are making history because they're solving the problem that the art history convention has set up the previous generations. And I think we're doing the same thing here at Web3, is that we're breaking that, right? Like we're revolutionizing what art was, what art is. We're changing that narrative and definition of what artist is even. It's no longer starving artists. I think that's an old term, even like that's even 20th century term, right? Like even it even stemmed from 19th century, but I think like look at the guy like Van Gogh, right? He died of starvation, literally, where he was a starving artist. He was the classic example of that. But now, like fast forward today, artists cannot, you can't thrive like that. You can't survive like that. I mean, Jeff Koons, right? Like the complete opposite spectrum of Van Gogh, right? Like he's like one of the top like 1% artists out there. And presenting artists at that progression from like being a starving artist to like thriving artists. I think he shows that progression of that. Now with Web3, now like more people can be become more thriving artists in the space. I hope that answers the question. I think
Yeah, you covered so much. I love that, I think it's really important for us to see what modern day artists have done to change kind of the narrative and what they're doing to succeed in culture. So yeah, everything you kind of covered was so important. There was so many like gems in everything you just answered. So thank you for that. And what I love about you is that you had that desire to pursue art, and then you went kind of the medicine route and then the art history route, and so you have this kind of like broad experience of different kind of areas. So when you represent and advise an artist, I feel like you as an artist yourself is a better advisor because you understand kind of both point of views. So I think that's important. I know for the Hungry Artist Exquisite Collabs, I asked you to put your artist hat on. And I said, hey, Nina, do you want to create a pair of wings? And you accepted the challenge, which was, amazing. And then I loved what you came up with. I thought it was super brilliant how it had kind of like a day and a night. I'd love for you to talk more about that piece, like how you created it. What was your thought process behind it?
Yeah, it was definitely a challenge, I must say. Well, I think first of all, thank you for like giving me the opportunity to tap into my, put on my artist hat, like which I haven't put on for, many decades. I don't think the last time I think I actually sketched was in high school. Like I was on a trip, like in a museum. They asked us like to draw like something, what you saw at the museum. You pick an object and you start drawing, right? And that was like about like 2 decades ago. That's a long time. And so yeah, it gave me the opportunity. Okay, so think of it was hard because I know how it is being an artist too. Like being an artist is not easy, right? Like a lot of people think, oh, being an artist is easy. You just like, you know, just draw something that comes, whatever comes to, but it's not like that, right? Like I want to be as like thoughtful as possible. Or I was thinking of like, what's how do I see as an artist? Like as a art advisor, I have a tremendous respect. Just to backtrack a little bit, I have a tremendous respect for artists from the beginning. Not because I come from a family of artists, but I know their struggles and challenges. It's hard, and as professions, like you're the last person people take you seriously, right? Like we revere and respect doctors and lawyers, but somehow like artists like is not taken seriously. So that really bothered me a lot as growing up and as an art historian. That again, that narrative of starving artists and not taking them seriously. And I always saw that as an entrepreneurs, and they were the best teachers, even though like some people didn't really make it so called like in the in our sense of definition of success. But they see the world differently, and I think I learned from that. Like they somehow like take you to a different realm of thinking, whether it's like the past or even future, right? Because some artists like have very future forward thinking. So that actually helps me learn about where we are and where we're headed, and also yeah, just in general, like all the things that we're dealing with, and like maybe coming up with solutions. And I think some artists have a great way of visualizing the solution, right? Like I could I'm good at like writing things, but sometimes I couldn't visualize. That was a challenging part for me. Like, how do I like visualize what I think my definition of art is? So I've been thinking about it, also like try to backtrack, like use my learnings, my history, art history background. So I was thinking more along like, thinking about like the architecture, like the beautiful stained glasses and these like Gothic churches. I don't know why it came to me. I just can't articulate that, but it's beautiful. It has lots of colors. It's transparent, like light goes through, and it's just it has it's multifaceted. Oh, multifaceted.
Mhm.
That's what artists are. Like I never met an artist who does like one single thing. There's always, I think we talked about it early on, like you said, like artists are layered. It's true. Like I never seen it like a single layer artist. There's always they're deep, right? They're deep thinkers and they're really emotional and they know how to express it through colors and forms. So I'm like, yeah. So I was trying to mimic this stained glass aspect with my very limited skill set in drawing. So I just decided, okay, it has to be super colorful because I know also Mary, the Hungry artist, is really vibrant community and in color. So it's like, yeah, it has to represent that. And artists like work day and night. I mean, there's no some people just do it breathe like is their breathing, right? Like it just comes after they draw constantly. So it's whether it's day or night, they're always doing something. And yeah, so I try to make it like broken, like also not try to be too pristine either. Because I think sometimes we tend to get obsessed with being perfect.
Mhm.
Like I'm myself too. I'm guilty of that. And I was like, it should look like rough, not rough in a sense, but like found objects, right? Like, oh, I love conceptual art and those movements. So I was trying to like find like how do I mimic like the fragmented glass, but more colorful. So I couldn't like come up with like because again, I'm like, I don't have the skill set. I was like, okay, I'll just do some abstract form. I can't do like if I were to draw something, I don't think I could make a form like a stained glass. I even had a trouble like, how do I make it look like transparent color? So I think that's I end up just like, okay, I'll just keep and color options too. It's like I had a limited color palette. I did this on my iPad. It's not even on paper drawings. I don't even have like crayon. I have crayons at home because my son, but like I didn't want to use crayons. I want to use some markers. I couldn't find the markers yet. So I just like
It
decided to
was
do it on.
perfect. Yeah, it was perfect. And I love the thought behind it of like calling it multifaceted because that's what you feel like artists are, but also the way stained glass reflects light and color. And I love the idea of the day and the night because I feel like as artists, we are always truly creating art night and day, so it's perfect. And I think that different kind of styles and artistic levels is what makes the Exquisite Collabs project with the 12 NFTs so fun because you see somebody who's like a professional animator, and then you have somebody who's an art advisor and a gallerist, and then you bring all of their drawings, whether it's digital or by hand together, and it makes like these different pieces of digital art that we never knew it was going to take us there. But when somebody submits something and you put, three different things together, it's almost like a magical moment of revealing it, like, whoa, I didn't expect it to look like that, So yours, I love, I think it's super exciting. Let me just pull up the date. I believe yours is launching on the 26th. And so on July 26th, we have yours and one other, like two NFTs dropping, and yours is paired with like an animator's kind of animation. And I think those two together is like awesome. So I love it. My question to you next is I was going to ask you about Web3 and NFTs. I know you kind of touched upon it before, and I loved your thought process of how it goes so well with keeping artist legacies and just documentation and kind of the forever transparency of the blockchain. It's perfect, What's your advice to other artists or your take on NFTs and Web3?
Yeah, I mean, Web3 is offering so many opportunities. Again, I think we need to also think differently than our previous practice, right? I mean, traditional art world, right? It has been all about like, artists like relying on, I mean, nothing wrong with it. They're relying on like your dealers and galleries to like promote your work. But I think the artists also should take a little more responsibility to learn like the basic business, like operations. I'm just saying basic. You don't have to be a wizard about like a business, how to run a business, but I think it's a key advantage to make that transition as an artist. I know a lot of artists like kind of push back. It's like, well, all I want is stay in my studio and make art all day. But unfortunately, the time is changing rapidly, right? Like that no longer is enough. I mean, I'm not saying like, yeah, work with your advisor, work with your galleries, dealers. They'll help you connect with the collectors, but that's not sufficient enough to for your career, you also need to like expand and branch out further to get into the Web3 space, and having this basic knowledge of like, it is running a business, like, to be honest, like that's how it is, right? And like, you have to market yourself, you have to do the legwork, right? It's not just making about like pretty pictures, and because it's not just like a single transaction, right? This is gonna be like one transaction is gonna lead to multiple engagements and relationship building. So I think a lot of artists should spend some time more, invest time to like focus on connecting, because whether it's real world or Web3, it's all about connecting with people. Listen to what their pain point, what they're looking for. I think a lot of artists are very introvert. I think that's another challenge. A lot of introvert artists by nature. Some people are like, that's why they're an artist, right? That's why they said I'm an artist. Mm-hmm. But again, in order to, that's fine if that's where you are. But I think if you want to get to the next level, you just have to like equip yourself the basic knowledge of running a business, and also building relations, because it all comes down to, whether it's in real art world, it's all comes down to relationship, because so many artists out there in real world and Web3, right? Like Web3 is even overwhelming volume of art out there. To sit there, in order to stand out from those kind of crowd, you have to build a meaningful relationship and build a community from like within. Right? It's not just like following all the hype or whatever that works. I mean, learn from that, and then but you have to apply it to your own projects and your own terms, so that it's more authentic, not just replicating what somebody else has been doing. I think that's the major criticism in Web3, is that there's that lack of originality. Mm-hmm. And I think artists really need to look within, like, don't compromise your practice. We're not saying just to go to Web3, it's not compromising your like traditional practice. It's just a way of an expansion of it, right? Like, how can I further, like, what can I do to my practice that I haven't tried before? Mm-hmm. And then I think Web3, beauty of the Web3 is it gives you an opportunity to experiment. If it doesn't work, you just pivot right away, learn from that mistake, pivot and do something else. But I'm not saying just give up well, I think I think a lot of people like distinguish like Web3 like world is different from the real life. I don't think it's same, like whether we're in real life or Web3, like people work the same way, or we're beings, we're just using a different mode of a platform to view or engage artwork. But I don't think that connection ever gets lost. It's just we're just communicating a different way.
That is great advice. Yeah. I think that's advice that other artists should definitely hold on to when they're creating in, traditional art mediums and also in digital. It's so true. It's about the connections and really connecting with the people and creating what's, right for each artist. And they could create things that are original and put it on the blockchain. You don't have to follow that formula of feeling like, oh, everybody in Web3 is doing this, I have to go that way. I think artists can still be themselves. And I think as like the platforms, get better and the tech and the tools are better and all, then more artists will hopefully adapt into using this as more ways to get exposure for their artwork. So I love that advice you've just given. And lastly, Nina, what are you currently working on and where can everyone find you?
Yeah, so I can't tell you the details because still is pending. So there's some curatorial exhibition projects that's pending. Might be happening in the fall. We're still confirming all the details, so I can't give you much more than that. But again, still continuing working with my mission, like working with like one-on-one private clients and helping them navigate Web3 spaces, and and also like in real life too, like helping artists build their legacies from real life. Like a lot of artists are still in analog Web 2 mm-hmm. or barely Web 2 at the stage. So I'm helping them with in terms of how do we, bring it up to speed, mm-hmm. Creating their like digital archives and then putting them to Web 3. So it's an ongoing, I don't think it's it'll ever stop, but it's an exciting. So I'll share more details about the upcoming exhibitions that's happening in the fall. But so to stay connected, I guess I'm sort of like phase. I was never good at Instagram. Like I was always like putting things like later, so I would do later. So Instagram handle is NYC Gallerina, and then the Twitter. I think I'm more active on Twitter these days, so it's at Gallerina 25.
Nice. So if we follow you there, we'll hear about all the updates to the cool stuff you're working on. And then I met you at the Mentory program. I saw the Mentory is accepting more applications. Will you be a mentor for the second cohort upcoming?
Yeah.
Yay.
Yes.
Nice.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm so excited. Thank you for the reminder. Yes, excited for the cohort too. I think, yeah, I think the application closes end of this month. So we'll be looking out for reviewing all the application that comes in. So looking forward to that.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah, everybody should follow Nina on your journey because it's so exciting. And especially as an artist, kind of seeing a point of view from like an art advisor has been so great. And then just always kind of getting feedback from you. So thank you for always like, giving me just great advice and being a mentor.
Yeah,
Yay.
it's been an honor, such a pleasure to work with you. So thank you so much for all you do, Mary. We're really excited to see how the Hungry Artist evolves over time. So looking
Thank
forward to that.
you. Yay. Have a wonderful day and thanks for being here. Bye,
Thank
Nina.
you. Bye, Mary.